Can Mara survive in a world where the fire in her veins is worth killing for? In a frozen wasteland, suffocating beneath a dying sun, Mara is a young phoenix raised by her father to explode at his command. He's the only one who can help her control her fire, and Mara desperately follows his orders to protect their phoenix family from relentless human hunters. Her sheltered existence is shattered when her family mysteriously vanishes, thrusting Mara into a perilous quest to find them. Along the way, she unravels a devastating truth. Her people may not be the innocent victims she's been taught to believe. When she comes face to face with a kind-hearted Eli, she begins to wonder if the humans aren't the monsters she's always feared. What if the greatest danger doesn't lie in the icy world outside, but in the truth of who Mara really is? Fire and ice collide in this explosive tale about a phoenix born with the power of a dying sun. So that's kind of the overall description for Ignite. It's
Mhm.
yeah, it's fun. It's very got a lot of adventure, but there were kind of, I would say, three specific things that were really important to me about writing this story, and that came out in all of the different iterations and eventually kind of, culminated into this version. And those three things are that I really felt like I wanted to write a story about a character who desperately wanted to be loved and valued and cared for, but the person that had raised her and taught her what value was actually manipulating her. Because I have seen so many of my youth kids and just so many experiences, and I've experienced this not even necessarily with my family, but even with like mentor relationships that I had years ago that were not healthy. And it was a dynamic that I feel like especially empathetic, compassionate young women end up finding themselves in, um, but is not often talked about. And so I want to tell a story about a character who has been raised believing that she's doing the right thing, and that by doing the right thing is to, be this thing that she's been created to be, and to essentially be believing lies that she's been fed, in the same way that I think we're fed lies in so many different other areas, whether it's even like a parental figure. But I think that this can apply just as much to the lies that we believe about ourselves and the lies we believe about our own sense of value. But I wanted to show a story essentially about a character who has been raised to believe that she is innately dangerous, that her body is dangerous, that her mind is dangerous, that her ideas are dangerous, and that unless there is someone else there sorting through her thoughts, telling her how to think, helping her know what's right and wrong, that she's okay. But if she's by herself, if it's just left up to her, she is not trustworthy in and of herself. And that's a dynamic that was really close to my heart and something that felt important to be able to delve into, because it is such a nuanced discussion. Because we can be very selfish. And so if all we are doing is wanting things for ourselves, we are probably going to end up hurting people. But at the same time, we are given wisdom, we are given insight, we are given value by the Lord. And that is really what defines us, not our fears, not other people's insecurities. And in a lot of ways, this is a story about a girl whose parental figure has tried to force her to inherit his fear of the outside world, his fear of himself, his fear of her, instead of teaching her to inherit hope, to inherit beauty, to see that the things that she has been taught to be afraid of are actually the very thing that the outside world is dying for. And so that's another big catalyst for Ignite, is you have this character who's a phoenix. She has, her blood is liquid fire, and she's very powerful. And so she's been taught that she has to hold everything inside. She can't feel a lot of these emotions because it might end up causing her to, to have her fire become stronger. She's actually had her wings have been cut off, and she's been taught that they can't grow back. She has to keep them from ever growing back in order to make sure that everybody else feels comfortable and safe around her. And so she's bought into this fully, and she does believe that she is the danger. And then there's also this outside world that she's been taught to be terrified of, and there's these humans that are hunting them, and she's been taught that these humans are just soulless creatures who only want to basically take the life and suck the blood and take the blood, not suck, but like take the blood from these phoenixes. And then what happens is her family disappears. And for the first time, it's just her. And her head is quiet and her thoughts are quiet. And she's trying to decide, who am I now?
And
Am
her
I
head is
really in
quiet
danger?
because she could hear her father's voice
Yeah.
telepathically inside her head. So all of a sudden, that's gone. Okay,
Yes.
that's what
Yeah.
you're
So the
saying.
phoenixes are telepathic. So her father is like physically in her head, telling her what to think and essentially controlling her and manipulating her. And so when he vanishes, suddenly, yeah, her head is quiet for the first time. And when her head is quiet, that's when she starts to be able to hear the song of the creator and begins to understand, who am I and what was I actually created to be? Not what does he want me to be? Not what am I afraid of? What am I supposed to be? But who was I actually genuinely created to be? And it sets her out on this whole long journey to try and find her family and figure out what happened. And as she ventures out and goes to try and rescue her family, that's when she realizes that the humans are actually not hunting them because they're these, merciless, soulless creatures, but the humans are hunting them because they live in a world where the sun is dying. And so there's no heat source left on the planet. So the phoenixes and their flaming blood is the only cure left to keep these humans alive. And so the very people that she's been taught to fear and hate are actually dying. They're fragile, they're worn, they're exhausted. And the very thing that she's been taught to fear about herself is what they're dying for. And so she begins to realize that the thing that she has essentially had weaponized against her is actually the very thing that will bring salvation and hope to these people. And so really it's a story of identity, and it's a story of sacrifice. Because even just like innately phoenixes, at least especially in my version, like you have a phoenix where they look human, but their blood is fire, and their eyes have a little bit of like a glowing glint to them, and then they're able to basically transform into these like majestic flaming golden phoenix creatures. And then once they transform, then they fall to ash and they have to kind of be reformed. And so it allows them to be able to be both powerful but also human and fragile. And it allows for this sense of rebirth, right? And it's able to tie into so many themes that I think we experience ourselves as people in just how many times we feel like we've had to start over. How many times have we had to let go of what we thought defined us and actually be able to step into a newness? How many times does it feel like we've lost parts of ourselves in order to be able to move forward into healing and into hope and into newness? So yeah, in a lot of ways, it's a Phoenix story that's fantasy, but it touches on identity. It touches on the idea of identity, redemption. What is true sacrifice? What does it mean to actually understand? And a lot of really interesting dynamics with parental figures, and how do you navigate that? And what does it mean to have compassion for someone and yet be unwilling to inherit their fear and to live life and to perpetuate the cycle that they have probably been impacted by and are perpetuating on you?